Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about reactive tracking. Last week we talked about smooth tracking and a week before that about static and dynamic clicking. So if you missed those videos, be sure to check out the previous parts. So what is reactive tracking? Unlike smooth tracking, in reactive tracking the targets move really fast. We also call this short strafes, where smooth aiming is usually called long strafes. The bots make really erratic movements, and unlike smooth tracking, the movements of the bots are unpredictable. In reactive tracking, the bots do have the same shapes, so they mostly come in big or small spheres, or in pill shapes. With reactive tracking, it's not about prediction, it's about reacting. So your reaction time is very important. It's the most difficult form of tracking, and your accuracy will be low. Tracking like this is most common in games like Apex. Reactive tracking is also known in games like Quake and even Overwatch. Why should you try to improve at reactive tracking? Reactive tracking is really good for building your reading skills. As I've explained before with dynamic bots, reading skills means reading the movement of a bot. The ability to understand where your target will go next when it makes its next turn or movement. So your reaction time is incredibly important. Reactive tracking is extremely difficult. When I was doing the benchmarks, I often referred to air specifically as a nightmare scenario. When I started playing KovaaKs, I found reactive tracking the most difficult. So I spent a lot of time trying to improve on reactive tracking. When I played for about a year, I got rank 1 in both Rec Strafes Kata and Kata IC Fast Strafes. And even though I had those rank 1s, the more difficult scenarios like Ground Plaza and Air, I still have so much difficulty with sometimes, even though I'm Astra ranked in reactive tracking on the benchmarks. The reason why reactive tracking can sometimes feel like you're so incredibly bad at it is because most scenarios, even the rank 1 scores, have really low accuracy. So you need to let go of the idea that you're incredibly bad at it just because you have a low accuracy. It can be normal the first few times you do a difficult reactive tracking scenario to get under 20% accuracy. Altogether, reactive tracking is a really good fundamental of aiming, especially if you play tracking heavy games such as Apex or Overwatch. The reactive tracking scenarios you will play will be much more difficult than an actual in-game scenario, as the targets will move faster and more erratic. But this is incredible practice for in your real games and makes the aiming in the real games much easier. So what are the optimal settings for reactive tracking scenarios? Most people with tracking scenarios in general use a sensitivity between 25 to 40 centimeters per 360 and 103 FOV on Overwatch, as this is the minimum amount but also the standard FOV that everyone uses. Personally, I use 103 FOV Overwatch and 49.5 centimeters per 360, which is my default 3.5 Overwatch Sens on 800 DPI. I use this on every single scenario and I never change. Use whatever is most comfortable for you or what you want to reach in aim training. So let's talk about technique. My technique when I play reactive tracking scenarios is that I stay in the middle of the bot when aiming. I've talked about this before in smooth tracking video. I am not someone that does edge tracking. I always stay in the middle of the bot. Try not to spastically flick left and right, which you will probably do a lot of the first few times you play reactive tracking scenarios. If you notice you spastically flick too much, try to do an easier version of the scenario first. Stay as smooth as possible in your aiming, and this comes from a lot of practice, but also good reading skills of the bot. You should try to track a reactive bot the same way as you would track a smooth bot. Do not try to predict, because you cannot, but just react smoothly. Don't tense up and grip your mouse really tight. Watch the bot and read the bot, not your crosshair. Match the speed of the bot. And don't overflick when the bot makes a movement. The movements on short strafe scenarios are typically really fast left and right. So don't try to overflick all the way left and right. Keep the corrections small and accurate. You don't know what direction the bot goes next, which is my argument for thinking aiming at center of mass is better than edge tracking. But it is a personal preference, and if you prefer edge tracking, that is completely fine. There are different types of reactive tracking scenarios. If we start with the benchmarks, first of all, there's air. In air, the bot is a sphere who moves both horizontally and vertically in very fast sporadic movements and short strafes. There's also plaza, or also referred to as ground plaza, which is a pill-shaped bot that also moves in short strafes and only moves horizontally. These two scenarios are gauntlet scenarios. In the newest benchmarks, they only last a minute, but in the past they would last multiple minutes. They still consist of 5 different types of bots. Each bot moves in their own pattern. If you are trying to get a certain rank on these scenarios, and you're really stuck on a certain bot, there's always the option to practice the bots individually. You just have to type the name of the scenario, and there will be scenarios called bot 1, bot 2, or bot 3. So that's a tip from me for if you want to get better at those scenarios. Then there's also the XYZ Voltaic scenarios, which is a bot that is kind of like air, but moves extremely sporadically and also kind of blinks as Tracer would in Overwatch almost. Then there's also the close fast strafes and the fast thin strafe scenarios, but those aren't really in the benchmarks. So here is what I would recommend in improving your reactive tracking skills. Once again, I will link the spreadsheet with the best scenarios according to the Voltaic community for reactive tracking, and you can pick your own scenarios from there. What I would recommend is always having a air kind of scenario, a plaza kind of scenario, and an XYZ kind of scenario. Those 3 are the most difficult and will give you the most progress if you're grinding them. When it comes to a playlist, there's really one I have in mind, and it's the issue-specific reactive tracking playlist by Voltaic. And that was it for this video about reactive tracking. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and I will try to answer you. You can also stop by my Twitch channel on twitch.tv/Valkie_. Next week we will be moving on to target switching, so if you look forward to that, please subscribe and leave a like on this video if it was helpful. Good luck on your aim training journey and hopefully see you next week. Thank you for watching.